Hi everyone, I hope everybody is well. I did say I wasn't going to cover this train, however I am having a play about today. So if this video does hit the little YouTube channel, then obviously everything went to plan. I just thought I'd sort of like discuss bits and pieces with you, just in case you missed the live, how to collapse it, how I'm going to glue it together, what glue I'm going to use, and then we'll hopefully build it together. Just got my cutting mat out. It's got the perspex sheet that I put over when we rolled the FIMO on Wednesday's live, just in case there's a bit of a shimmer on there. So to build the train, you're going to need 2 of these chests. I will be ordering some more because I think I need maybe 2 or 3 on my Christmas tree this year. Now the list for this is endless, different colours. You might want to do a Grinch, Harry Potter, that was also discussed, candy cane, gingerbread, sweets, anything will obviously work absolutely fine. So one you're going to keep as is, and then your second one, just pop it open, and then there's 2 little brackets. I'm not going to do this because I've already collapsed mine. Just pull this bracket backwards and forwards until these little pieces pop out. That'll give you the lid to collapse like this. And then what I've done is I've just gone with my wire cutters, just trimmed off this lip here. You'll see which lip I mean. You might want to keep it as it is, but I have trimmed mine off. So that was that lip. And then obviously you've got your 2 brackets at the back as well. And again, I've just used my little wire cutters and I've just snipped those off as well. That way everything is smooth. I'm probably going to add clay to this anyway. However, if you are not, you can obviously just grab some little gold paint and just cover that. If, you know, once all your design is done, and you've got some little bits of plastic showing, just like I have. Now this piece here is going to attach to the front, which we're going to do shortly. And then this is your carriage for the back. You might want to add extra carriages. You know, if you've got some more, you can have it as long as or short as you like. But for this build, I'm just going to stick with 2. So you can flip your carriage this way. So obviously you can fill all the inner part. Maybe put a little seat inside there. You know, just by using a cocktail stick. Paint the inside. Add some detail on the inner part here. Maybe some little curtains. Again, it's completely up to you. But I do want to add this as like a hook. You might want it all solid, so you would glue everything together like this. But I've just got these little hooks out. These are like little hook and eyes. Now some of the charms, a couple of the newbies, let me just grab one. They have also got little hooks on. Obviously these are a little bit smaller. But any sort of like little mini cup hooks will be good for this. So my plan is to make 2 holes either side, and then using another one of these, just going to open it up with my pliers to form like a hook. And then that way, once everything is in, I can hook that over, and then this train is obviously can be hooked on and off, and just sort of like separate this part here. So we've discussed that first. When I said cocktail stick for your seat, I meant a lollipop stick, just in case you're thinking it's going to be a little bit too thin. Right, so that is all now discussed. So before I start adding anything to this, it is best drilling your holes first. If I was to attach this now and I'm trying to drill my hole, I might end up knocking this off because it's not fully dry. Maybe even snapping it off. I'm pretty rough when it comes to things like that. So first of all, I'm just going to align my carriages. And I'm going to do it where mine is flat on the top. So I'm going to flip it this way. Align it up. And then obviously I can't do it on camera. I'm just going to make 2 holes. So I'm just going to just measure with a ruler of where I want my little Dremel holes to go. So let me drill those first. So I've now drilled these holes, and then I'm just going to open up the chest, lay this on the top, and then align the holes up. I don't know how square these boxes are, so you're probably best, you know, measuring it the best you can, and if they look a little bit off, try and eyeball it the best you can with your first two little holes. Then I'm just going to take a pen and just do 2 marks where my sorry, we keep going blurred, where my holes are roughly, just so I can drill. Obviously this isn't going to be attached together, but I think it's just going to be easier doing it this way and trying to line up the holes the best we can. So that has now given me my 2 marks, and then again I'm just going to take my Dremel and drill out those little holes. So it's now drilled and together. This is what it looks like. So let me just run through what I did. I couldn't do it on camera, I needed to be really close, my eyes aren't great. So I used 4 of the hook and eyes, which we discussed earlier. Let me just measure this inner eye. It's about 5mm. And then I've just took some pliers, opened out this little notch here to give like the hook. Place that inside first. Let me just take this off. 1 second, there we go. So I've done my hooks this way. Obviously my holes was a little bit big, which you will find as well, because these are like a screw, and we've drilled a round circle, so you will get them loose. If you do your holes too small and then you try and screw this in, you might crack the plastic, so you best go in a little bit bigger on your drill hole. If you are unsure what size to use, I always measure it just by the tip, just putting your drill tip on the top of whatever hook you are using. Just give you a rough guide. So that is more or less the same width, can you see? So you'll see. So once that was in place, I got a tiny little brush and I just used a blob of my resin and just set that, just to make them a lot more secure. I would avoid your super glue on this, because your super glue will dry white on Perspex. I will also avoid your glue gun. Again, it's going to dry white, and it'll get really clumpy on the outer part. So once that was set, I just went in with my pliers and just trimmed down the top. I don't want to go too short, because obviously I don't want it, I need a little bit of support inside. Just trimmed off the end of the screws, just so they weren't as long. And then I used my circle ones on here, did exactly the same, just a blob of resin on the top, and just set that. Again, these are making it really secure, and then just trimmed the little extra pieces off. They want a lot to come off. And then now you can hook this on here. Make sure I've got it the right way around. And that has now formed the little carriage. I've just hooked this off for now, because I am now going to attach this front piece. I've just picked up this glue. I've got some Gorilla Glue somewhere, just from my local shop. I thought, rather than trying to go through all my boxes, so this is just like a flexible glue. So again, regarding your glue, no tacky glue, no PVA glue. It's not going to be strong enough, because this plastic is quite thick. You can use your super glue, because you're going along your plastic and not actually on your Perspex, so that would be fine. Avoid your glue gun on this, because you're not going to be able to sit it flat. It's going to come out here. As you know, your glue gun is a little bit sort of thicker as it sets. So let me just open this. I've not used it before. Looks very similar to Gorilla Glue. And just while I was opening that, the other thing you won't be able to do is use your resin. The reason why you cannot use your resin is your torch is not going to be able to get between your gold pieces, so it won't set. So again, you won't be able to use your resin on that. Resin you are best just using on anything clear. So if you can get your torch front and back, just like I've just done with these, your resin will be absolutely fine. So let me just pierce this, and then what I'm going to do, it says it takes 5 minutes to cure and about half an hour to set. I'm going to lay this together, align that up, and then I'm going to run this glue with a cocktail stick down this edge and this edge, and then I'm just going to hold it for a few minutes, just while it gets tacky, and then I will be back. I am now back. My train is still drying, so I've just got to be a little bit careful with it. Once I inlined it, just flipped it over, run some more glue on here, and I'm just keeping it on a flat surface. If I don't, this piece might end up popping up a little bit, so I'm going to try and keep it in line as much as I can. Now this little lip here, do not put any glue on it. The reason why I say that is if you was to push this up so all your glue sits sort of like on the inner part, you see that sort of like half moon shape there, this train is going to flip up. So just keep it just on what I've explained in the step a second ago, just on your join, nowhere else, just along the top. I just wanted to cover that because obviously, you know, I don't want you gluing the right way around your half circle and pushing that up, and then obviously this part's going to flip over slightly. So just on this bottom piece. I've kept my little lip to the front just to match this one. You might want this the other way. So again, just make sure just before you start gluing, which, you know, whether you want this to wear your front piece or your back piece. I haven't attached that just yet. So whilst that is drying, I just want to discuss the wheels next. So for the wheels, I am not going to add like a little dowel or anything like that underneath. I'm literally just going to glue them on the front, and I'll probably stick with the same glue that I've just used for this. So again, I'm going to either be using my stronger sort of like super glue, Gorilla Glue, or the glue that we have just seen, this stuff. So obviously I want to discuss all the wheels first. Now you are best putting your wheels on first, because that way, depending on which wheels you go for, what I don't want you to be doing is decorating everything and then sticking your wheels on, just in case, you know, you ended up having sort of like a clay drip coming down here, and then obviously your wheels are going to come straight over your clay drip and just sort of like destroy, or should we say hide, all your other bits and pieces. So I would glue your train in, do all these bits and pieces that we have done in these sections, and then we can add the wheels. So depending on what design you're going to go for, you've got your peppermint swirls, you've got your little pineapple rings. Again, I'm just going to grab all those out in a second. I am not using any of those. I am actually going to use cakes. Just grabbed a few out. So this is the newbie, which is your pineapple ring. Now you can paint these, you can spray paint these. These are perfect for wheels. If you are doing like a sweetie train, like say I want to get some more of these because I do want to do a few other different trains. Like I say, there were so many ideas whizzing right round my head. So you can paint these, leave them as they are. These are perfect. We'll use it on this one because obviously that is still drying. If you are doing sort of like a sweetie train, I think these look absolutely gorgeous. Let me just grab another one. So again, I would probably keep them pineapple, but it's up to you. So you can use those as your wheels, and then you can obviously add a middle. So if you are doing the sweetest, you might want to add like a little M&M inside. I don't know, something like this over the top, and layer it up, you know, layer your wheels up like this. It's just a random one that I've just pulled out. You might want to use these ones, which originally I was going to use, but I've used these quite a lot on my other displays before. So again, you might want to use these as your wheels. You might also have some sort of like red plastic ones that we've done before. I don't get those in anymore because I know there's Temu. They sell them in bags of 20, I think, really cheap. And I can't compete against those prices. So, you know, if you're wanting sort of like your white and red plastic peppermint swirls, you can obviously have a bit of a search online. But that's what those look like. There was obviously a couple of other bits and pieces, like I say, just depending on what you're doing. You might want to add a little chocolate inside each wheel as well. Like I say, the list is endless, depending obviously on what you are, you know, what you are creating. So you've got your pineapples. Again, they're going to look great spray painted, painted by hand. You might want to do them in segments. So, you know, like it looks like a swirl lollipop like this, but more sort of like straight in your squares. There's a lot of guides in there. So, you know, you can have a play about with these, but these are absolutely perfect wheels. Now, if I was to do the one that I didn't design in my head before this, I definitely would have gone for these wheels, if I'm honest. But again, it's completely up to you, whichever wheels you choose. However, I will be using these as my wheels. I've not used these as wheels before, and I think these are going to be absolutely perfect. So anything round, look at these. So this is what I say about getting your wheels on first, depending, you know, some might be smaller than others. Can you see? So if you was to decorate everything and then put your wheels on last, you're probably going to be sticking your wheels into your clay and you're not going to have the same effect. So first off, you need to decide on what wheels you want. So on the back carriage, I'm going to do 4 of that colour. So I'm going to have 2 this side, 2 this side. And then on the middle carriage, I'm going to do pink. Now these also come in chocolate, which again, look absolutely gorgeous. I'm just going to stick with pale colours for mine on this build. Let me just be careful with that. So I want 2 pink. And then again, I'm going to repeat the 2 pink on the other side. And then for this one, you just want 1 wheel at the front. Don't pop it in the middle. It'll look like your train is sort of like off balance. So for this one, I'm going to use the wheel at the front here. And I'm going to repeat the first colour that I did. Again, you can paint these. I think this is just going to be perfect for what I've got in my head, should we say. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to let that dry and then I'm going to attach all my wheels just by using the glue that we have just discussed. I will start on the carriage first. I'll flip it this way. Align where I want my wheels because I do want them sort of, you know, sitting a little bit. Don't pop your wheels up like this. I'm saying it just in case, you know, when we get to decorating, I would have it so it's half and half. So whatever you're going for, aim for half of your design. So if I was to do these ones, I'd take it halfway. I would paint these obviously first before I put them on. So they would be like this. These are going to go like this, and then again you're going to flip it round. It's just going to give you a better guide as well to try and line everything up. Or again, take these peppermints if you've got these, and then again align that half and half. So I'm going to attach these 4, and these 2, all with my glue. Let it dry, and then I'll be back to decorate. I have now attached all my wheels. The front ones a little bit more difficult to attach, so I'm going to explain that. I've had a play about as well. We've mentioned all the other glue. However, because I am filming this sort of glue, your super glue, will take a good few hours to dry. So you are best, you know, if you are using the method, laying everything flat, gluing everything into place, letting it dry for a good few hours and then flipping it back over. However, I don't have time for that because I'm filming. So what I've done is I've just had a play about with my glue gun. Now, ideally, I would use this. They seem pretty secure. However, they might end up popping off at some point. However, right now, I'm quite happy the way my glue gun has stuck. Obviously, it hasn't pulled out because we've got quite a thick base underneath. So I started with the back carriage. Added my glue to start with. Give it half an hour. Again, it was still a little bit tacky before I could flip it over. So I've gone ahead with my glue gun. So if you want to use your glue gun, so far so good. Or if you just want to wait and stop being impatient like me, you can use your other glue as always. So start with your first two. Half and half, like we said on the previous step. Flip it over, half and half, and get this one into place first. Now, just need to be a little bit careful with this because obviously it's still wet. Did the same with these. So, half along, half along. And then when I went to the front wheels, I kept everything flat. Because as much as we've gone half all the way, I've tried half, up, down, you know, so obviously these wheels are more sort of like downwards. However, if you do that and they're not all in line, naturally it sort of like went up like this or down like this. So once your wheels are in place on this carriage, keep it flat. Obviously you're going to have a gap underneath. Now, just before I attached my wheels, I felt, because obviously we didn't have any glue around this area here, I just flipped it upside down and just used a lollipop stick and just braced that bottom piece. Used my glue gun because obviously this was used with other glue. So glue gun on the top, and then I just braced just a little bit of a lollipop stick. Just give it a, you know, more of a area to stick to. I don't know whether it's that glue or what. However, I just wanted to do that just, you know, to help it along the way. So obviously that is sort of like braced underneath. And then once I attached that, I then went and added my wheels. So keep everything flat. And then you're literally just going to push this up to this design here. Because obviously, as you can see, it's sort of like lifted slightly. And that will give you the guide of where to put in your other wheel. It sounds really complicated, but you'll know what I mean when you start gluing everything together. So start with your back one, go on to this one, brace the underneath if needed, and then keeping it on a flat surface, blob of glue, and then push your wheels into place so everything sits flat. We have now built all the base, so you might have gone for a completely different colour, completely different wheel. However, I'm really pleased with the result so far, and I'm so pleased I've actually filmed this as I'm building. So like I say, I might just keep, you know, swapping in and out because I'm making it up as I go along. So next, I'm going to start on this carriage. Now, I've kept mine with the perspex on the top. You might have gone the opposite way. So this is, you know, a big tip of mine is to now grab everything that you want on this first carriage. Because what you don't want to be doing now is, you know, doing everything all in one. It's a lot easier to start with your design that you're going to do at the back and then work along to the front. I don't know how much clay I'm going to put on anything. However, this will be obviously covered in clay. In my head it is. So the design I'm going for, you might have some little Santa boots, which are these. So these are on the little regular board, which come in black. So they might already match your design. However, they are far too black and don't match anything that I have done. So this is your other tip. I have just got some straws, used a sticky dot on the inner part of my straw, pop that inside my boot, flipped it this way. That way you can paint these. I literally just use my spray paint. I'll show you the colour in a second. So I flipped these around and sprayed these, and then I just flipped it this way and just sprayed along the top. Just pop these in some foam board just while they was drying, and they are dry now. Let me just show you the spray paint on that. One second. It is this one. So you might have already had some charms that I'd already sprayed in this colour. Just find it a little bit easier. If you are using your acrylic paint, they're going to need a few coats. And while I've got the spray paint. So that is the colour, and that is the brand that I use. I will discuss more when we get into sort of the gingerbread house, which again, I haven't started yet, but we are doing a gingerbread key house box. I'm feeling we need some Santa boots coming out of the roof. And this is the way I would attach the legs. But again, we will discuss that later on without confusing everybody. So I am definitely going to add some boots. So let me just pop these off now they're dry. Whether I use two, I think I am. The other bits that I want to put on here are the little jars, the little glass jars with the lollipops and the little straws. I also want to add some, maybe a little house. So, oh, and the acrylic I've pulled out. I love that one as well. So now is the time just to grab out all your bits and pieces. I'm going to add some bows to these boots as well, because what I don't want to be doing now is rolling this in clay as much as I want to put all the clay on the top. And I do want to try out those crystal sprinkles, so we're going to do that together and see how they turn out. And I want like a little drip, you know, with my clay going around. I'm just sort of like working out how much I'm going to need. Just taking that out the equation, shall we say, for now. Whether I use this one, swap it over. I've got some stars as well, which I definitely want to use. I might, again, use these further along. Just that once I've got my clay into place, I can then start pushing on my little design of what I've chosen. So far I've picked out these bits. I may use that. Again, you can always paint these. And then for my boots, I want to add a little bow just to tie in. So these are on the mini boards. I'm trying to use everything. One that I haven't used before, and two that I know the majority of you have got. So these are the little bows. And I think these are going to be so adorable at the top of his little boot. So I will attach this little bow with my glue gun. So I'm going to put a blob on the top of the boot, and then just align this. You might want some tweezers over the top of my little glue blob. Cool. They're not going to stay anywhere until obviously we push it all in. As always, if you are using the sort of mini, I can't get my words out, mini charms, don't be tempted to blob it on the back. Always blob it where you want it, and then that way you can place it on the top. So always start with a blob of glue there and then place it over the top. rather than doing it the sort of like opposite way. I don't want mint. I'm going to go for the same colour actually. So I'm going to do, let's have a look at the blue. No, I'm going to go opposites. I was going to do a pair, but I'm going to do blue on this one. So let me just glue that on just like I have done. I've just attached my blue bow and I've got my pink bow. Oh, these are really cute. Again, you might want to add a tiny bit of fur trim around the edge. You might want to add a tiny bit of ribbon before you add these bows. I'm quite happy with them as they are. I might end up adding some glitter just around the top later on. Again, I'm not quite sure. We are making it up as we go along. I've also got these 2 jars. Again, we was toying with the idea of adding labels. I have come up with an idea. I'm going to use these little donuts. This is the wrong colour. I'm going to pick out another colour. I'm going to blob my glue gun on there and just align these onto the top. So let me just pick out 2 colours. So I think I'm going to do, I think these come in mint and then maybe purple. Let me just grab those. No, I was wrong. No mint in these. They come in purple, light pink, dark pink, chocolate and blue on like a lemony colour. I'm going to go for these 2. Just put these aside a second. And then again, blob of glue where I want it. So I'm going to go in the middle here. And then attach these to the top. I'll pull off that string in a second. And then do the same with this one. So really all I'm doing right now is just pulling out all the bits and pieces that I want on this back carriage, building everything together, so then when I roll my clay, I'm not, you know, obviously your clay is air dry, so I don't want it sort of like drying out while I'm trying to push all my bits and pieces in. So it's definitely, you know, if you're building a few bits and pieces, is to build these together. And they look gorgeous. I love these as well. Again, I might add some clay in these, or a little sort of like sweetie coming out the top. If you've done sort of, you know, a lot more colour than me, you can sort of like start building it up. If you're wanting something smaller, just grab yourself some tissue paper or some cotton wool balls, blob your glue inside, push it down just to sort of like give you a base before you start gluing. Obviously this is going to fit fine, but you know, if you're wanting sort of like a smaller lollipop stick, or I haven't cut these down yet, or like a candy cane, something like that, you don't want it, you know, lost in half of your design. And then that way you can place it on your cotton wool ball that you popped inside just to bring your design up. So I've got these. I'm just going to have a quick look of what I want to put in my boots. And then anything else I can find. So I'll be back in about 5 minutes. I am back. I don't know why I said 5 minutes. I feel like I'm on live. I did end up doing an extra bottle. So I've added these. I pulled out 2 of the gingerbread houses. Added little bows to the top of these. And then this is what I put in my boots. I didn't need any filling for these, but like I say, it just depends which ones you are doing. literally started with the larger ones, added my glue gun, and just attached these inside. So I might need more along the way, but we will see what happens. But I have built the majority of what I want on this section. So I'm now going to get out the Bohs foam clay, and we're going to roll this over the top before we start adding our little decorations. So let me just grab my clay. So this is white Bohs foam clay. You can find this on Amazon. Give it a good mix as always. Takes all the air out of it, stops it being really sticky, and stops it cracking as well. Now I've still got this sort of like Perspex sheet, and I've just grabbed out my flour because I feel like it's going to maybe stick a little bit onto that. So once you've manipulated it, now if you are doing sort of like a gingerbread train, you might want to colour this, or you want a pink drip. You know, gingerbread as I mean like a dough colour. This is just all-purpose flour. This just stops it sticking. Help me roll it out a little bit more. And then just an acrylic rolling pin, as always. So I'm going to start rolling out this clay. I don't think you're going to need any glue on the top because I feel it's going to stick to this plastic. However, once you've rolled it out and sort of like placed it on the top where you want it, you might want to just add a little bit of tacky glue or PVA glue underneath for your clay to stick. Until I get to that part, I am not quite sure, but I just want to cover it just in case. You've seen me roll out clay before, so I'm not going to film this whole thing. I'll just put the lid on that. I'm just going to roll it out big enough just to fit along the top part. So rather than placing this on the top, it's just going to give me a little bit of a guide. So I'm just going to gently press it, and then I don't know if you can see on camera, it's just going to give me the outer edge that I want. And then on the outer edge, I'm just going to take like a cocktail stick and just run it backwards and forwards, up and down, just to create the sort of drip. So let me just make a more of an indent. Now, if you don't trust yourself doing this because you feel like it's going to stick, just pop some flour on the top of your clay. There we go, you can see it a little bit better now. So that is the size that I want. However, like I say, I'm just going to take a cocktail stick, just run it up and down in just sort of like little drips. And then I will take my scissors and go all the way around. Once I've gone around with my cocktail stick. So let me go around with the cocktail stick, and then I'll just jump in just before I cut it. So just before I cut it, literally just run it right the way around. And then just take your scissors. If your scissors are sticking to your clay, just try it on this sort of like extra piece first before you start trimming it. Dip your scissors into some flour, or just again, just sprinkle off the surface. Because as you're sort of like going around here with your scissors, you don't want all your clay sticking and becoming stringy. So let me just trim all this off. And then once it's cut, lay it over your little carriage. I'm going to show you this one, and obviously you can use the same method with the other two. Otherwise this video is going to be far too long. If you are putting glitter over the top and the crystals that I am going to be doing, you don't have to worry so much about everything being really smooth. And then take the end of a paintbrush or the end of a dry paintbrush, and then you can just start pushing this along your guides, trimming off where needed, and then just work all the way around. So maybe a little bit up here. I've cut that corner off. I didn't end up adding any glue on the top, however, you might want to. So far it's sticking fine. but until it's fully dry, I don't know whether it's going to peel off. I very much doubt it'll peel off because obviously it's on Perspex. So I'm just using this brush just to manipulate it a little bit more. So before I add all my boots and my bottles, obviously this is going to push inside. I'm just going to coat the whole thing with PVA glue, the new sort of like crystal sprinkles and the iridescent glitter. That way I'm going to find it easier because I can coat all this before I start pushing my boots into my clay, and then if needed I can then go over with the same mixture along all my other design. I find it easier doing it this way rather than putting all these in and then glittering over the top. It's not really going to coat my clay, which is what I want. It's going to end up sticking on the inner part of here, on here, maybe, you know, along this sort of like rim here. So I'm going to do that separate. So I'm going to show you this piece. And then I'm going to push everything in, and then I'm going to work along the carriages, and then obviously we will have a finished result. So let me just grab the new crystals, my clay, and my glitter. I said clay. I meant my glue. So it's clear PVA glue. I've just put it on a white sheet. Just move these out of the way, just so I can collect everything. These are the glass crystals that I've just put in a little shot glass. So they are a lot heavier, so you can mix a little bit of your iridescent glitter in with these, but I just want to try it separate and see how we go. So taking a brush, I'm literally now going to coat the whole thing in PVA glue, which I have just done, and then I'm going to take my iridescent glitter, catch it on this paper, and I'm going to go all the way around. And along the top. Now you might want to let this dry for, you know, 5 to 10 minutes. However, I don't have time. So what I'm going to do is coat again with my PVA glue. And then I'm going to go ahead with these crystals. So I've just give it another coat. I haven't let it dry. I probably would. And then I'm just going to have a look at these because, like I say, they're pretty heavy. Sprinkle these over the top, and then I'm just going to start dragging all these down onto my drips. I've just used my brush, just sort of started dragging all the little crystals about. Just keep it your brush dry, keep wiping it off because obviously you will pick up some glue underneath. And just start spreading all these around down your drips, and I think these are absolutely gorgeous. I've never used these before, so I'm just dipping back into my pot. It definitely gives more of sort of an ice effect. I'm not going to cover the whole thing because obviously we've got the bits and pieces to put on next. So now what you will need to do is grab all your bits and pieces, have a good play about, pop these into your clay. Now they might dry into your clay, however if they don't after 24 hours and they sort of like come off, which especially for, you know, the heavier bits, you can run around with your tacky glue. You'll see where it's sort of like popped out, and then put these into place. If you know exactly where everything wants to go, you can obviously add your tacky glue or your PVA glue first before you start pushing these into your clay. So let me push all my design into my clay and show you that piece. And then I'm going to pause the video, carry on with the front part of my train, and then I'll be back with the finished result. I am now back to show you what it's looking like so far. I've added one of the newbies using my PVA glue. I'm just going to attach some crystals to that. Everything did not need gluing because obviously we have PVA'd all the top. Pushed all this into place. That's what it looks like from the back. Obviously it's going on my Christmas tree. If you are doing a 360, you might want to sort of like turn your boot the other way. Same with this one as well. But as always, because it's going on my tree and a front display, I'm going to keep it as it is. Those crystals really do make that glitter pop. These little gingerbread houses do have holes in the side, so I've literally just blobbed a little bit of PVA glue, rolled up some foam clay, used my cocktail stick and just poked those inside the hole, just to cover the holes on either side. Just got to blend that one out just a little bit with a cocktail stick or anything flat. So let me just, while it's fresh in my mind, I'm just going to push that down there like this. So this is my back carriage. That's what I say about using your glitter first. If I'd used it afterwards, it would have been over a lot of the design that I really don't want. If you are wanting glitter, you know, on the top of the jars, again, just use your PVA glue and sprinkle them separate on where you need them. I don't want any more glitter. I'm quite happy the way it is so far. So I am now going to do exactly the same with my clay. Decorate these bits. I've still got one jar to do, so I might end up putting this on here somewhere or on the top. I also wouldn't mind adding these as well, whether I put it to the front of my train or on this piece here. But now I've got my design, I'm now going to carry this design on right the way to the front. I'm not going to put anything inside this carriage either. You might want to, obviously depending on what design you've gone for. You might want to put some little bits and pieces in there. So I'm going to carry on with the whole build and then I'll be back with the finished result. I haven't quite finished. I am just working on the snow on the top and around my other cart. I thought it was a little bit unfair of me not to show you sort of like the wheels. I don't want you stressing trying to roll them out like we did the top. So what you will need to do is just grab some PVA glue. Let me just do this wheel and then I can carry on. Just run this just around the top of your wheel. This is obviously if you are putting clay on these. Grab yourself some Bohs foam clay. Just roll this into a sausage. Doesn't have to be perfect. Place this, excuse me, over the top of your glue. And then just take your scissors. Trim it off so it looks something like this. And then just work with sort of like a flat tool. Again, I'm going to glitter everything so it doesn't have to be really smooth. Just start pushing this into your glue, working around your wheel. And then again, taking this flat part, just drag your clay around your wheel. That will give you sort of like the sort of drip snow effect. Then you can tap it with your fingers, pull it down, and then just shape that around your wheel. So now I've showed you that, I'm going to carry on. And I am now back with the finished result. This turned out super cute. I've followed the design that we did from the back right the way to the front, adding the clay drip. I've got some more charms coming to the front. However, for now, I've just rolled the sausage just to make that a little bit thicker. I've also put you on a white surface. I've added some peppermints to the back as well. This is just adorable. I know I'm going to be building so many more of these. So I've really hoped the tutorial helped. And I will see you all soon. Goodbye, everybody.